Hey everyone, What If Fan here, bringing you another exciting part of What If Transmigrated in Bleach World. You can find the fanfic title and the original author's name on my Patreon page. Make sure to check it out and show them some love. If you enjoy the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and ring that notification bell so you never miss an upload. Quick update. The series What If Transmigrated in Bleach World is now on hold, since we've caught up with the author. So now, I will be using the second most popular among the fanfics on the previous poll as the replacement for the series What If Transmigrated in Bleach World. As such, please vote in the poll and let me know which story you'd like to see next. Also check out my Patreon channel for early releases of all the series, where you can find all the series released one day ahead of YouTube. Alright, let's jump into it. Chapter 371, Taking the Wrong Road and Almost Exposed. Uehara Shiroa hurriedly explained, I am responsible for guarding those people in the cell. The other party looked Uehara Shiroa up and down, then walked to his side. At this time, Uehara Shiroa's heart also became nervous. Although they couldn't recognize each other while wearing masks, if the other party took off his mask at this time, everything would be exposed. Uehara Shiroa saw a knife on the masked man and put his hand on his waist. He gradually moved his hand to the handle of the knife, ready to fight back at any time. If he was really discovered, the only option was to kill him. The subsequent matters would be easy to handle. There were so many hollows imprisoned in the cells next door. No matter which cell he threw the body into, these hollows would be able to dispose of it. The other party didn't take action directly, but asked Uehara Shiroa curiously, since you're responsible for guarding the prisoners over there, don't you know that you're not allowed to come here? Uehara Shiroa hurriedly nodded humbly, I was confused just now and took the wrong road. I'm really sorry. I'll go back now. After saying that, Uehara Shiroa quickly ran back in the other direction. Fortunately, the other party didn't chase after him. Although he was a little suspicious, he didn't take any further action. Uehara Shiroa wasn't familiar with the situation inside. When he was outside the cell, he could determine the direction by sound with his eyes closed, but after entering the complex, he could no longer tell the direction. Since this road was wrong, Uehara Shiroa walked out along another road, and indeed saw more masked men outside. The more masked people there were around, the harder it was for Uehara Shiroa to be discovered, and he quickly blended in. When he just walked out of the dungeon, he saw a few masked men chatting at the door. I heard that the president has captured a few more people this time. These people are quite strong. If they're all fed to Flying Spirit, it might be able to evolve again. These guys are really powerful. I heard that they turned the serious organization upside down. Even Miyamoto was killed. Is this true? If they could kill Miyamoto, how could they be caught by the president? Although Miyamoto is powerful, he's still far inferior to our president. Moreover, our organization has so many hollows that haven't been put to use yet. Of course, they had to surrender. Listening to the conversation between these people, Uehara Shiroa grasped the key words. The flying spirit they were talking about should be a higher level hollow, perhaps cultivated by them. Their purpose in capturing Uehara Shiroa was exactly the same as what he had guessed before, which was to use them to feed these high-level hollows so that the high-level hollows could continue to complete their evolution. It seemed that he must find a way to rescue his companions as soon as possible. If he was a step late, it would be too late. Uehara Shiroa planned to find out the daily routines of these people first, and break out at a time when the defense was the weakest. Anyway, the key was in his hand now, and he could let his companions escape at any time. As long as they left the territory of the Dawn organization, they would be safe. But Uehara Shiroa hadn't forgotten about repairing the cracks, and he had deliberately let himself be caught by them this time, in order to find out about the situation. If he couldn't repair the cracks, it would be a waste of time. Chapter 372, Approaching the Masked Leader. Uehara Shiroa quickly became familiar with this group of masked men and began to obtain information from them. In less than a day, Uehara Shiroa figured out the division of labor among this group of masked men. The leader of the masked men in charge of this area was called Federal. The mask he wore was different from everyone else's, but the difference wasn't very obvious. If you weren't one of them, you couldn't tell the difference at all. There were 4 black claw marks on the mask of an ordinary masked man, but one of the claw marks on the mask worn by Fed was dark red. Such a slight difference couldn't be seen from a distance, and the subtle change could only be detected when you got very close. At this time, Uehara Shiroa also had an idea. If he could get rid of this Fed, he would be able to take over his position. After all, Fed was at a higher level than these ordinary masked men, and he could get in touch with more things. The problem with his companions was simple, it was just a matter of repairing the cracks, which he was afraid wouldn't be accomplished as an ordinary masked man. Uehara Shiroa slowly began to get close to this Federal. Fortunately, he still had some valuable items on him, so Uehara Shiroa gritted his teeth and gave him a few of them. After receiving the gift from Uehara Shiroa, Fed looked him up and down. "I didn't expect you to have so many good things on you. Where did they come from?" Uehara Shiroa answered without hesitation, "Aren't there a few people captured in the dungeon? I looted this from them. How dare I keep this kind of stuff for myself? I must give it to you first." Fed nodded in satisfaction. "That's right, you have a future, young man. Follow me in the future, and you'll definitely benefit." Uehara Shiroa nodded repeatedly. As long as the other party trusted him enough, he would be able to get the opportunity to be alone with him. Sure enough, the opportunity came soon. As the crack between the inner areas and the outer areas became larger and larger, more high-level hollows ran to the outer areas, which caused the scene in the outer areas to become more and more chaotic, and these hollows also began to roam everywhere. At this time, a group of high-level hollows came to invade the outskirts of the Dawn Organization's territory, but this didn't put much pressure on the Dawn Organization. Fed soon received instructions from his superiors, who assigned him to clean up these high-level hollows. Fed was going to find a few trustworthy people to act with him, and Uehara Shiroa, who had given him a gift before, naturally became the top priority and the best choice. After all, there were rewards from the organization for completing such tasks, and he also wanted to give this opportunity to someone closer to him. There were a total of 6 people who went together and were divided into 3 groups to resist these high-level hollows in 3 different directions. Uehara Shiroa and Fed were in the same group. This was the first time that Uehara Shiroa had come out since being captured by the Dawn Organization. The scene outside was completely different from when he first came in. 20 to 30 high-level hollows began to launch continuous attacks on the outskirts of the territory. Without hesitation, Fed took Uehara Shiroa and rushed to the west, followed closely by him. Uehara Shiroa didn't dare to show too much of his strength. If the other party found out that he had the Hogyoku, they would definitely start to doubt his identity. Fortunately, Uehara Shiroa's level was such that even without using all of his abilities, he could easily deal with these high-level hollows. Chapter 373, Removing the Leader and Taking Over the Magpie's Nest. Although Fed was the leader of these ordinary masked men, his strength wasn't that strong. This was also a major feature of the Dawn Organization. The Dawn Organization didn't rely on hard power to gain a foothold, but rather relied on the hollows they controlled to help them fight. The reason why they had to work in groups of 2 was to take care of each other. Otherwise, if they were attacked by these high-level hollows, they would most likely be swallowed by them. Uehara Shiroa had also been looking for opportunities at this time. Now he must find a way to deal with Federal. This was the best opportunity. When they returned to the Dawn Organization again, he wouldn't have such a good opportunity again. When the 2 were dealing with these high-level hollows, one of them suddenly appeared behind Federal. Fed looked at the huge black shadow under his feet and slowly turned his head. Just as Fed was about to escape, Uehara Shiroa took action and stabbed him in the back with a knife. Fed wanted to shout, but no sound came out. After doing all this, Uehara Shiroa quietly put on Fed's mask and easily dealt with several high-level hollows in front of him. There was no one else around, so there was no need to continue concealing his strength. Uehara Shiroa thought about it carefully, and figured that the other groups might not have finished fighting yet, so he just waited there for a while. After the Hogyoku was released, a dazzling light shone around it, and several high-level hollows were instantly turned into ashes. Seeing that the time was almost up, Uehara Shiroa pretended to be exhausted and limped back. At this moment, in the eyes of these masked men, Uehara Shiroa had become their leader. He was wearing Fed's mask, so in these people's eyes, this was Fed. Sure enough, the other masked men had already finished the battle and were waiting for them to come back. Seeing that only one person came back, one of the masked men immediately stepped forward and asked, "Chief, why are you the only one back?" Uehara Shiroa pretended to be helpless and shook his head. This kid's skills were too clumsy. "I tried my best, but I still couldn't save him. He was swallowed by those high-level hollows. Fortunately, I dealt with them, so there won't be any more trouble." The other masked men didn't say much. They turned their heads silently and walked back into the territory. However, under the mask, Uehara Shiroa could no longer hold back his laughter. It seemed that these people were really unrecognizable. Using only a mask to distinguish each other was indeed a big loophole. From this moment on, Uehara Shiroa became the leader of this group in a sense. Since leaving the dungeon, his companions had never seen Uehara Shiroa again. In order to reassure them, he took the opportunity to go to the dungeon to visit his companions. After arriving at the dungeon, Uehara Shiroa said to the masked men next to him, "You guys go out first, I have something to ask them." The masked men didn't dare to say anything more and just walked out silently. After they left, Uehara Shiroa came up with a mischievous idea and planned to scare Ryuta. Chapter 374, Returning to the Cell to Report to Companions. Uehara Shiroa pretended to be serious and walked forward, glancing around the entire cell. The other companions all looked calm, except for Ryuta, who curled up in the corner and didn't dare to look up. Uehara Shiroa cleared his throat and spoke to Ryuta beside him, "You blonde boy over there, come out." Ryuta's face changed immediately. Before he could figure out what was going on, he looked at his companions next to him, as if asking for help. Raymond walked forward and asked in confusion, "He was just seriously injured. Just tell us if you have anything to say." Uehara Shiroa was about to burst out laughing, but he suppressed his smile and spoke calmly, "Don't you know why you were brought here? Now it's time for you to be put to use. Let's start with this blonde guy." If they asked Ryuta to leave now, it must be because they wanted to use him to feed these hollows. It seemed that these people had already started to take action against them. Now everyone became nervous, as they already knew why they were brought here. Ryuta was about to cry out of anxiety, and he kept cursing Uehara Shiroa. "I've already told you guys that this Uehara Shiroa isn't reliable at all. It's impossible to expect him to come back and save us." "That's good." Uehara Shiroa ran away by himself, leaving all of us here. At this time, only Chiyokura noticed that something was wrong. Although the voice of the person in front of her was very low, she could still feel that the voice seemed somewhat similar to that of Uehara Shiroa. Although the mask worn by the masked man in front of her was completely different from the one that Uehara Shiroa wore before, Chiyokura was a person who was good at observation. Chiyokura stepped forward tentatively and asked, "Is it Uehara Shiroha?" Hearing Chiyokura say this, Raymond immediately stepped forward to stop her. After all, in the eyes of these masked men, Uehara Shiroa should still be locked up in the cell, so how could he possibly be outside? If she said the wrong thing at this moment, all of Uehara Shiroa's previous efforts would be wasted. In fact, Raymond believed that Uehara Shiroa would never abandon them. At this time, Uehara Shiroa finally couldn't help laughing, and then mocked Ryuta, "Look at how scared you are. It was the right decision not to let you out. Otherwise, you would have run away long ago." Everyone finally breathed a sigh of relief when they heard Uehara Shiroa's original voice. Ryuta was so scared that he almost wet his pants. Chiyokura hurried forward and asked, "Tell us what's going on outside now." Uehara Shiroa told everyone what had happened in the past 2 days. After hearing what he had said, his companions all admired him very much. "That's amazing. I didn't expect you to get rid of their leader in such a short time. Now you can use his identity to find out about the cracks. I thought it was difficult to rescue us from here, but now it seems that getting out isn't a problem. We just need to think about how to repair the cracks." Ryuta had already been very annoyed by what had happened in the past few days, and he immediately spoke to everyone, "You've really forgotten the pain now that the wound has healed. It's good enough that you have the chance to get out now, but you're still thinking about repairing the cracks. You should think about how to escape first. Chapter 375, Waiting for the News of Dewey. Facing Ryuta's disdainful sarcasm, Uehara Shiroa spoke, "Since I see that some people disagree, let's stick to the old rules and vote by raising hands. The minority must obey the majority. Do you think this method is fair?" After hearing what Uehara Shiroa said, Ryuta immediately stepped forward to stop him. "Come on, stop doing this again. You're all on the same side. I'm the only one being bullied. What's the point of voting? Just do what you say. I don't want to argue with you." After saying that, Ryuta curled up in the corner again, as if he didn't want to listen to everyone's plan. Next, Uehara Shiroa began to introduce the situation outside to everyone. "Now that I've taken over the magpie's nest, no one doubts my identity. I just don't know if this method can pass the test of Dewey. If we want to solve the crack problem, we must start with Dewey, but I don't know if he can give us this opportunity." Shiokura said to Uehara Shiroa with a worried look on her face, "Then you must pay attention to safety. If you find anything unusual, you should leave first." Uehara Shiroa replied with a smile, "Don't worry, I'll find a way to rescue everyone. I won't go alone." This time, Uehara Shiroa also had his own selfish motives. His soul slayer had been taken away by the other party. If he couldn't get it back, his trip would be in vain. In the end, the mission of the cracks wasn't completed, and the soul slayer was handed over to someone else. All of Uehara Shiroa's efforts during this period would be in vain. After explaining everything, Uehara Shiroa walked out alone, and before leaving, he didn't forget to say a few words to the other masked men. "These few people inside are the ones the president has specifically asked to keep. Take good care of them and make sure nothing happens to them." The masked people didn't dare to refute and nodded one after another. Next, Uehara Shiroa only needed to wait for an opportunity and wait for Dewey to call him over. He also believed that it wouldn't be long before Dewey would take the initiative to find him. As expected by Uehara Shiroa, on the night when he informed his companions of the news, Dewey sent someone to call him. A masked man hurried to Uehara Shiroa's side and then spoke, "The president wants you to come over." Uehara Shiroa nodded slowly, thinking secretly in his heart that his chance had finally come. When he arrived outside the president's hall, Uehara Shiroa was still a little nervous, afraid that his identity would be discovered by the other party. He calmed himself down a little before slowly walking in. After entering the door, Uehara Shiroa imitated the other masked men and knelt on one knee on the ground with his hand in front of his chest in the exclusive way of the Dawn organization. "President, why did you call me here this time?" Dewey turned around slowly, and when he saw Uehara Shiroa, his brows frowned slightly, which made Uehara Shiroa a little nervous. He immediately lowered his eyes, not daring to look at the other person. Dewey asked, "You usually come to my place more casually, why are you suddenly the same as everyone else today?" Uehara Shiroa's heart tightened. Although he was imitating the appearance of other masked men, he might still have flaws. But on second thought, this might be Dewey testing him. Chapter 376, Psychological Game with Dewey. By simply taking off Uehara Shiroa's mask, you could see what the face underneath looked like, but such an action would actually make his subordinates have some doubts. If Dewey really did this, it would mean that he didn't trust the people under his command, so Dewey used this method to deliberately test Uehara Shiroa. After figuring this out, Uehara Shiroa tried to answer, "President, you may have remembered it wrongly. I always perform the salute normally." After saying this, Uehara Shiroa himself was very nervous. If he guessed the other party's thoughts wrongly, the next result would naturally be predictable. Although the Hogyoku had strong destructive power, the level of the Hogyoku in Uehara Shiroa's hand was too low, and he was no match for Dewey. If the Soul Slayer was still in his hands, the two might still be able to fight, but now Uehara Shiroa was no match for Dewey. Dewey slowly walked down the stairs and approached Uehara Shiroa step by step. Uehara Shiroa's heart was in his throat. He didn't dare to do anything excessive and could only kneel on one knee on the ground. When he walked up to Uehara Shiroa, Dewey still didn't say anything. He just stood beside him and looked at him, which gave Uehara Shiroa infinite pressure. Fortunately, Uehara Shiroa kept his composure, and Dewey finally spoke. Maybe I remembered it wrongly. I called you here this time because I have something important to entrust to you. How are the people imprisoned in the dungeon now? I hope nothing unexpected has happened. Uehara Shiroa nodded slowly. My brothers have been watching them the whole time and nothing unexpected has happened. These guys are relatively honest and haven't done anything wrong. Please rest assured, President. Dewey nodded in satisfaction after hearing this, then spoke. Dolph has recently devoured a lot of advanced hollows that have evolved, but he still hasn't evolved. This means that these foods are no longer of any help to him. It's time to put these people to use. If he can evolve after devouring them, it means that humans have a very good effect. When Uehara Shiroa heard the name Dolph, he was still unfamiliar with it. He had never heard these people mention it before. However, it wasn't difficult to guess from what he said that this Dolph should be a relatively advanced hollow raised by the president himself. However, the level of this hollow might be far beyond their imagination, at least it should be higher than Quickly. After all, after devouring the evolved high-level hollows, he was unable to complete his own further evolution, which meant that this guy's level was too high, and these low-level foods could no longer provide him with enough nutrients. And it wasn't difficult to guess from Dewey's words that he seemed to be doing this experiment. If devouring people had a better effect, Dewey's next goal might be to capture more living people to feed Dolph. However, this wasn't entirely a bad thing for Uehara Shiroa. Since these high-level hollows could no longer provide enough nutrients to Dolph, there was no point in the existence of the cracks. Uehara Shiroa immediately suggested, I will do as you order, but since these high-level hollows are no longer useful, can the cracks be repaired? Chapter 377, Agree to repair the cracks. Obviously, Uehara Shiroa's words aroused Dewey's suspicion. Dewey lowered his head and asked him, does this crack cause you any trouble? Uehara Shiroa's mind worked quickly and he answered immediately, I think the existence of the crack is also a threat to our organization. A few days ago, I went to the outskirts of the territory to clean up some high-level hollows. This is just the beginning. If the cracks continue to exist, there will be more and more high-level ones, which will continue to invade our territory. I'm afraid we'll have to spend a lot of time and energy on them. And we lost a companion in the last battle. We don't want to lose more people. Uehara Shiroa's explanation really convinced Dewey. Dewey thought about it carefully and then spoke, what you said does make sense. If the crack continues to exist, it may not be a good thing for us. So you can take people to deal with the crack problem. Just bring those black spirits back over there, but before that, go take those people in the dungeon away first. Uehara Shiroa was stunned after hearing this. This order seemed to be reversed. If he were to repair the cracks first, he could use this time to come back and rescue his companions. By the time Dewey discovered it, the people would have already been rescued and the crack would have been repaired. His mission would be considered accomplished. But now Dewey asked him to take his companions to feed Dolph first, which was really difficult to do. By the time he brought the black spirit back from the crack, he was afraid his companions would have already been devoured by Dolph. Seeing that Uehara Shiroa didn't speak for a long time, Dewey asked curiously, what's wrong? Is it so difficult to handle such a small matter? Uehara Shiroa couldn't think of a way to explain for a moment, so he had to answer, not really. I'll do it now. After leaving there, Uehara Shiroa was thinking all the way about how to ensure the safety of his companions. Judging from the current situation, taking his companions to Dolph had become an inevitable result. It seemed that he could only take one step at a time and see. When he arrived outside the cell, Uehara Shiroa asked the other masked men to wait outside while he went in to see his companions. Everyone was excited to see Uehara Shiroa coming back, thinking that he had come to save them this time. Unexpectedly, Uehara Shiroa brought them bad news. Now things are getting complicated. Although the crack problem has been solved, Dewey has agreed to repair the crack, but before that, he asked me to take you to feed a high-level hollow named Dolph. Ryuta, who always spoke coldly at the side, became unusually excited this time and immediately ran up to speak to Uehara Shiroa. are you going to sell us all out just to get the reward for repairing the cracks? If you do that, we won't let you go even if we become ghosts. Uehara Shiroha rolled his eyes at Ryuta and said calmly, everyone can rest assured, I'll find a way to rescue you, but now you must come with me. The other companions believed him very much and thought that Uehara Shiroha wouldn't betray them, but only Ryuta disagreed. Chapter 378, Ryuta almost ruined the situation. This wasn't the first time that Ryuta had stood up against Uehara Shiroha. Uehara Shiroha had long been accustomed to it. Ryuta said with a firm face, whoever wants to go with him can go with him. I definitely won't go with him. Uehara Shiroha frowned and spoke, if you follow me now, I can guarantee that you'll be fine. If you don't follow me, I don't need to tell you what will happen to you. I'm asking those masked men to stay outside now. You should know clearly what they'll do to you if one of you is missing. After some thought, Ryuta had to agree to Uehara Shiroha's request, but he wouldn't give in so easily. Ryuta already had his own ideas. Since he had no chance to escape, Uehara Shiroha should have no chance of surviving either. Everyone followed Uehara Shiroha out of the cell, formed a long line, and followed behind him. When they reached the door, several masked men who were waiting outside followed them. Ryuta looked around and saw that there were 2 masked men following them. Uehara Shiroha was close by, so he immediately started shouting, you guys are really stupid. You can't even tell your own people apart. Hearing Ryuta's words, Uehara Shiroha immediately became nervous. He turned around and ran toward Ryuta quickly, grabbed his hair and pressed him to the ground. The gap in strength between the two was too great, and Uehara Shiroha's sudden attack caught Ryuta off guard, so he was slammed to the ground face first. Then Uehara Shiroha grabbed Ryuta's hair and the two looked into each other's eyes. Although the two of them hadn't gotten along well along the way, this was the first time that Ryuta felt murderous intent in Uehara Shiroha's eyes. If Ryuta said this, no one present would be able to escape, and they wouldn't be able to have any good results. It was obvious that Ryuta was willing to perish with everyone else. He didn't think that Uehara Shiroha would save them. He just thought that Uehara Shiroha wanted to sell these people, which would not only give him a chance to escape, but also give him the reward for the task of repairing the cracks. Ryuta knew very well that if he said one more word, Uehara Shiroha wouldn't show mercy and would kill him immediately, and Uehara Shiroha really thought so at this moment. Sacrificing one blonde could save so many companions, which was definitely a good deal for Uehara Shiroha. The people around them also became nervous, fearing that Ryuta would say another word. The masked men nearby were also confused, not knowing what was going on. They didn't quite understand what Ryuta had just said. Uehara Shiroha said calmly, don't play any tricks on me at this time. If I kill you now, I can still let those high-level creatures devour you. Ryuta swallowed his saliva in fear and didn't dare to say anything more. He looked away. Seeing this, Uehara Shiroha loosened his hand. Everyone was almost killed by Ryuta, so it was inevitable that everyone would feel some resentment toward him. The masked men next to them didn't dare to say anything. Although they had some doubts about the leader in front of them, they didn't dare to speak out. After all, if you offended your superiors, you would probably end up with nothing good, so they had to endure it for the time being. Chapter 379, Send someone to bring back the Black Spirit. When they walked out of the cell, Uehara Shiroha called the masked men behind him to the front. You guys lead the way, I'll keep an eye on this guy from behind to prevent him from doing anything to us. The masked men didn't think much about it. After all, Ryuta's behavior just now did make them feel a little strange, and it was normal for Uehara Shiroha to choose to watch him from behind. However, Uehara Shiroha had his own reasons for doing this, because he didn't know where Dolph was. He just wanted these masked men to lead the way. Halfway through the journey, Uehara Shiroha had an idea. Now, whether he could lead his companions away safely, there might be only one way. Uehara Shiroha immediately called a few more masked men and spoke to them. The president has issued an order that the crack has no meaning now and will only continue to affect our safety. Immediately send a few people to bring back the Black Spirit and let the crack repair itself. Faced with Uehara Shiroha's orders, these masked men didn't raise any questions, but did as he instructed. Uehara Shiroha only hoped that these people could act faster, at least to repair the crack before his companions were swallowed up. Although he wasn't nearby, as long as the crack was repaired, Uehara Shiroha would immediately receive a notification that the task was completed. There was no need to pretend anymore at that time. He just needed to fight his way out with his companions. As long as Dewey wasn't here, they could still escape from here easily. Under the guidance of several masked men in front, they soon arrived at a basement. Rather than saying it was a basement, it was better to say that this was a huge underground palace. The entire room was extremely spacious, with only a faint firelight illuminating the sides. In the center of the room, there were countless chains locking up an extremely huge hollow. It seemed that this was the Dolph that Dewey mentioned. Although he didn't get close, Uehara Shiroha could still feel Dolph's powerful aura. Let alone them, the Dawn organization probably wouldn't be able to handle this thing themselves, otherwise they wouldn't have locked it up. After bringing the few people over, Uehara Shiroha gave some instructions to the masked men next to him. You don't need to be here for the next feeding process. I can watch here alone. You go guard outside and don't let anyone get close to here. The masked men nodded and turned to walk out. After they left, Ryuta finally couldn't stand it anymore and sat down. He was beaten badly by Uehara Shiroha just now and was obviously seriously injured. Ryuta wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth with his hand and looked at Uehara Shiroha with resentment. In the end, we all became your tools to escape. Don't you feel guilty for doing such a thing? Uehara Shiroha spoke up. If I really wanted to feed you guys to this big guy, I wouldn't have sent them out just now. I've already sent people to repair the cracks. We just need to wait here for the notification. What we need to do next is to delay the time as much as possible. I estimate that half a day will be enough for the cracks to be repaired. Raymond asked curiously, not enough time? Remember it took us a whole night last time. Chapter 380, Dewey appears at the critical moment. Uehara Shiroha answered, we wasted a lot of time on the Black Spirit last time, but these masked men can control the Black Spirit, so there's no need to fight it, so they're much more efficient than us. I just hope nothing unexpected happens during this time. Everyone can take this time to have a good rest. We'll have to fight our way out later. After hearing this, the other people sat around one after another, while Uehara Shiroha walked toward Dolph's direction. Chiyokura was carefully searching through her own reference book, and sure enough, she found Dolph and immediately called out to Uehara Shiroha. Don't go any further. This guy is brutal by nature. He will not only devour those with lower levels than him, but he won't let go of humans either. Uehara Shiroha slowly stopped his steps and stood not far away, watching the huge monster in front of him. Different from most hollows, this guy looked more like a ferocious beast, lying on the ground with 4 legs, staring at everyone with a fierce look. Chiyokura exclaimed curiously while searching through the pages. According to the description here, Dolph's level shouldn't be particularly high. He's only slightly stronger than some normal high-level hollows. But the guy in front of me looks much stronger than those ordinary high-level hollows. Uehara Shiroha nodded, that's right. The Dawn organization captures these low-level hollows everywhere just to feed this guy. The reason they created the cracks and let these high-level hollows escape is to allow them to complete their evolution once again, and then feed these evolved high-level hollows to Dolph. Ordinary high-level hollows can no longer satisfy this guy's appetite, so Dewey's next goal is to feed him with humans. Raymond frowned nervously. There will definitely be many people who will fall into his hands next time. We absolutely cannot let him do this. Ryuta sneered with a look of disdain on his face. We can't even save our own lives right now, and you're still thinking about other people. Try to find a way to escape from this place first. Raymond was about to open his mouth to refute Ryuta, but was interrupted by Uehara Shiroha. This time I agree with Ryuta's statement. His behavior is certainly inappropriate, but we don't have time to care about so many things now. The most important thing is to escape from this hellhole first. After hearing what Uehara Shiroha said, Raymond stopped talking and the few of them just rested like that. He thought that after the crack was repaired, he could take this opportunity to escape, but he didn't expect that an accident would happen. Just as they were resting on the spot, several masked men suddenly rushed in from outside. Uehara Shiroa immediately stood up and questioned them. "Didn't I tell you guys to stay outside? Who allowed you to come in?" These masked men seemed not to have heard what Uehara Shiroa said. After entering the door, they separated into 2 rows and stood on both sides of the stairs. Then a familiar figure walked in from outside the door, and everyone present was shocked. The person who walked in from outside was Dewey. He walked down the stairs while speaking to Uehara Shiroa. "I noticed something was wrong with you from that day on, but I was very curious about what you were trying to do, so I played along with you." Chapter 381, Dealing with Dewey. Faced with Dewey's sudden appearance, Uehara Shiroa seemed a little caught off guard. Uehara Shiroa himself didn't expect that Dewey would appear at this critical juncture. The task of repairing the cracks must not have been completed yet. Now everyone was in trouble. Before Uehara Shiroa could say anything, Ryuta next to him started complaining first. "I've told you before, don't waste time here. You guys insisted on completing this crappy mission. Now you're blocked here. Let's see how you can get out." Uehara Shiroa gave Ryuta a cold look. "If we can't leave, then you can forget about leaving either. We're all in the same boat now." Ryuta kept sighing beside him, and Uehara Shiroa whispered to his companions. "Everyone, don't panic, delay the time. Try to deal with him for a while longer. Once the crack is repaired and we get the attributes from the mission reward, we should still be able to fight." Uehara Shiroa wasn't clear about the rewards of other companions, but his own reward was that he could upgrade the Hogyoku. As long as the Hogyoku could be upgraded to a higher level, even if Uehara Shiroa didn't have the Soul Slayer in his hand, he should be able to easily resolve the difficulties in front of them. Uehara Shiroa decided to handle the situation alone, so he walked out and said to Dewey, "We have no intention of becoming enemies with your Dawn organization. We're just trying to complete our own mission. We could have all stayed out of each other's way, but you insisted on taking our lives, so we had no choice but to do this." After saying this, Uehara Shiroa took off the mask on his face. The face revealed under the mask surprised all the masked people around. They never thought that the person they had been following for the past few days was actually Uehara Shiroa. Dewey tilted the corner of his mouth slightly and said to Uehara Shiroa, "You don't seem to have any right to negotiate with me. Your lives are in my hands. Life or death is just a matter of a word from me." The other party obviously had no intention of talking to Uehara Shiroa. After all, his side was stronger. As long as he gave the order, Uehara Shiroa and others would be captured in an instant and fed to Dolph behind them on the spot. Uehara Shiroa unconsciously took a few steps back, turned his head to look at Dolph, and then spoke. "I advise you guys not to come over so easily, otherwise I won't be responsible for what the big guy behind me does." After hearing this, Dewey burst into laughter. "You think too highly of yourself. Dolph has devoured so many high-level hollows that he's no longer an ordinary hollow. Do you think you can do anything to him with just a few of you? I advise you to save your energy. It would be better to surrender as soon as possible, and you'll suffer less." Uehara Shiroa frowned and said seriously, "You can go ahead and give it a try. We're going to die anyway, so we might as well try our best to ruin your plan. We may not be able to kill Dolph together, but we can definitely make him suffer. I guess you've already used a lot of resources to feed Dolph. If he's seriously injured now, you should know how much energy it'll take for him to recover." Dewey frowned immediately after hearing this. He knew that Uehara Shiroa wasn't trying to scare him. Chapter 382, Buying Time for Companions. He also didn't want to waste resources on these people. Dewey thought about it carefully for a long time, then asked, "Then we might as well talk about what you want. We can resolve it peacefully." Ryuta stepped forward and said to Dewey, "What's the point of asking such questions? Don't you know what we want? Just let us go." Dewey smiled and shook his head. "I'm afraid that won't work. If I really let you go, even the brothers around me won't agree. Uehara Shiroa killed their leader. Do you think they'll let him go easily?" Ryuta was about to continue speaking when Uehara Shiroa stopped him with his hand. Then Uehara Shiroha replied calmly, I know we can't escape death, and I don't expect you to let us go, but I still want to make a small condition. It's easy to get us to surrender. Your people should withdraw now. After dark, we'll surrender naturally. This request made by Uehara Shiroha made Dewey feel a little strange. At this moment, he didn't understand what Uehara Shiroha was planning. A masked man nearby came forward and made a suggestion to Dewey, don't believe this kid's lies. If he runs away, it'll be more trouble than it's worth. Dewey thought about it carefully. Uehara Shiroha seemed to be a very smart person, but now these people were all in his territory, and there was no other exit in this basement. It was impossible for them to do anything to Dolph with just a few of them, so after thinking it over carefully, he agreed to Uehara Shiroha's request. I can give you some time until dark. After that, you just come out on your own. I don't want to bring people in to arrest you again. I hope you can keep your word, otherwise I'll make you die in an ugly way. After saying that, Dewey waved his hand and walked out with his men. Raymond began to admire Uehara Shiroha more and more, and asked him in disbelief, did they really leave like this? Uehara Shiroha sneered, he knows I'm not kidding him. If he really wants to kill us, we'll fight to the death. Even if we can't beat them, we can make them pay dearly. He must have heard about our affairs in the serious organization. We can take care of Quickly and Miyamoto with just a few of us. He must be afraid of us. If the Dolph he has painstakingly raised for so many years were to fall into our hands, it would definitely be a loss, so he doesn't want to conflict with us. Raymond nodded slowly, so what should we do now? How about I go see if there are other exits in this basement, and then we can find a way to fight our way out. Uehara Shiroha shook his head, I just said this to test him. Since he agreed to my request, it means there's no second exit here. This place can even trap a high-level hollow like Dolph, so how can we possibly escape? Raymond seemed a little anxious after hearing this, then we can't just wait here like idiots. Are we really going to surrender after dark? Ryuta stepped forward and patted Raymond on the shoulder, just accept your fate. You think he can come up with any good ideas, but in the end, we're all involved. Chapter 383, Pray for the cracks to be repaired soon. I've said before that saving your life is the most important thing. No one listened to me. A bunch of people just followed Uehara Shiroha. This is your final result. Uehara Shiroha ignored Ryuta and turned to speak to everyone, all we need to do now is wait. I just hope they can work faster. After Uehara Shiroha said this, everyone understood that he wanted to use this opportunity to delay time, hoping that the cracks could be repaired faster. As long as the mission could be completed, everyone in the team would receive mission rewards, their combat effectiveness would be greatly enhanced, and they might have a chance to break out. Chiyokura, who had been silent, stood up and spoke to Uehara Shiroha, are you sure those people are still on the mission? Since Dewey has doubts about us, he should have called them back. Uehara Shiroha began to analyze, according to my estimation, it's unlikely. The people I called were the masked men who were guarding the dungeon. They don't usually attract much attention, so even if they left, no one would notice. Even if Dewey wanted to call them back now, it would be too late. Everyone was silent after hearing this. There was no other way now, so they could only sit here and wait, praying that the crack could be repaired soon. Time passed bit by bit, and Uehara Shiroha sat there with his eyes closed, waiting for the next big battle. Everyone acted very calm, except for Ryuta, who couldn't sit still and paced back and forth in front, looking very impatient. Seeing Ryuta like this, Raymond spoke, you should sit down and take a rest. We still have to fight them later. Ryuta said with disdain, you can fight if you want. I know myself well. The Dawn organization's power is no joke. Even if we can beat them, do you see this huge beast behind you? They raise it for fighting. Do you think you can beat it? After hearing what Ryuta said, Raymond turned around and glanced at Dolph behind him. If this guy was let loose, they would definitely not be his match. Raymond shook his head helplessly, and Uehara Shiroha spoke up, don't worry about Dolph's problem. This guy is very strong, but you didn't notice that his whole body is chained. This means that even Dewey can't control him now.
This Dolph may not obey their orders now. If we loosen the chain, I'm afraid we won't be the only ones to suffer.
After listening to this, everyone thought about it carefully and felt that Uehara Shirowa's analysis did make sense. After hearing what he said, they instantly perked up. Now that you mention it, there's really nothing to worry about. We just need to follow Uehara Shirowa's instructions now. We just hope that the cracks can be repaired faster. At the same time, around the crack, the masked man had taken the black spirit away, and the crack began to repair itself. At this time, Dewey, who was waiting outside the dungeon, was getting impatient. He stared at the direction where the sun was setting, wishing it would get dark soon.
A masked man came forward and asked Dewey, "President, are you sure these guys will do what they say? What if they don't keep their word?" Chapter 384, The Inevitable War. Dewey's mouth corners tilted slightly. It's not up to them.
Seeing that it was getting dark, Dewey stretched and stood up, twisted his neck, and gave instructions to the masked people beside him. It's almost time to close the net.
Then Dewey rushed into the dungeon with his men. Facing the upcoming war, everyone was ready, except Ryuta, who was cowering in the back. When Uehara Shirowa heard the sound of someone coming in, he realized something was wrong. He couldn't see what was happening outside from inside the dungeon. Since someone had come, it meant that it was already dark, and he still hadn't received a reminder that the mission was completed. Things had come to this point, there was no choice but to fight to the death. Dewey walked up and asked Uehara Shirowa, "I have kept my promise. Now it's getting dark outside. Shouldn't you just surrender? I think you should feel honored to be devoured by Dolph. Ordinary people don't have such an opportunity. In the future, you'll become a part of Dolph's body." When saying these words, a greedy expression appeared on Dewey's face, and Uehara Shirowa stepped forward and asked him, "You don't think we'll just surrender?" Upon hearing what Uehara Shirowa said, Dewey immediately frowned, "Court death." Then Dewey rushed forward, and the masked men behind him followed suit. The Soul Slayer in Dewey's hand was too familiar to Uehara Shirowa. He knew the power of the Soul Slayer and tried his best to avoid a direct conflict with Dewey. Uehara Shirowa said to everyone in a low voice, "Stay with me and stand in front of Dolph. This guy won't dare to act rashly." After hearing this, everyone approached Uehara Shirowa. Dewey raised the Soul Slayer in his hand and chopped it down hard. Then Uehara Shirowa pushed his companion next to him. The two of them dodged instantly, and the Soul Slayer's blade energy chopped straight toward Dolph. The moment the sword energy touched Dolph, he became irritable, slowly stood up from the ground, roared, and the whole cave began to shake. Only then did Dewey realize that something was wrong. No wonder Uehara Shirowa stood there. It turned out that he wanted to use the Dolph behind him as a shield. It seemed that if he wanted to take down these people in front of him, he could only fight them in close combat. If he continued to attack wildly like this, Dolph would be injured by himself. Ordinary weapons weren't a big deal, but the Soul Slayer had great lethality. Add in the fact that Dewey himself was very strong, and if things went wrong, he might really seriously injure Dolph. Dewey immediately gave instructions to the masked people beside him, "The rest of you please be careful not to hurt the Dolph behind them, and try your best to capture these people alive." The masked people rushed forward, but it was obvious that they were no match for Uehara Shirowa and others. After Dewey saw the opportunity, he quickly stepped forward, grabbed Uehara Shirowa, pulled him out of the crowd, and threw him to the ground. Seeing this scene, the other companions wanted to step forward to rescue Uehara Shirowa, but they were held back by the masked people. Under such a huge impact, Uehara Shirowa spat out a mouthful of blood. Dewey was about to continue his attack, but he didn't expect Uehara Shirowa to suddenly lie on the ground and laugh. Chapter 385, Hogyoku Upgrade. Strong light illuminates the cave. This laughter made the hair on the neck of everyone present stand up. Dewey asked in confusion, "You're still laughing when you're about to die? I'll make sure you never laugh again." Uehara Shirowa slowly closed his eyes and said lightly, "It's a pity that you're a step late." Dewey raised the Soul Slayer in his hand and was about to stab it into Uehara Shirowa's heart when a brilliant light burst from his body. Dewey couldn't open his eyes because of the strong light, and subconsciously put his hands in front of his eyes,
but the next second a huge impact force directly bounced him away. At the same time, the other companions became like divine warriors, and they beat these masked men to a pulp in just a few moves. It turned out that just when Uehara Shiroa was thrown to the ground, he suddenly received a prompt from the system that the crack had been repaired and the Hogyoku had been upgraded. Uehara Shiroa slowly stood up from the ground, saw Dewey not far away, and cracked his knuckles. "I've said it before, we won't interfere with each other. It seems like this is the path you chose." Uehara Shiroa was just about to try out how powerful the upgraded Hogyoku was, so he gathered his energy and released the upgraded Hogyoku's power at Dewey. At this time, the sky outside had completely darkened, and the cave was even darker. The strong light of the Hogyoku directly illuminated the entire cave environment. A huge shockwave was launched toward Dewey. Dewey couldn't believe what he saw. He didn't expect that he would be defeated by this young man in front of him. After the shockwave came into contact with Dewey, the powerful force tore his body apart, and he was torn into pieces in an instant. By the time the bright light of the Hogyoku gradually dimmed, Dewey had already turned into ashes and disappeared, leaving only the Soul Slayer beside him. Uehara Shiroa slowly walked toward the Soul Slayer, picked it up directly, then turned around and looked at the other masked men. Even their president had been killed by Uehara Shiroa, so these masked men naturally didn't dare to make any other moves. They dropped their weapons and fled without even turning their heads back. Only after all the masked men had run away did Uehara Shiroa finally kneel down on the ground. Several of his companions hurried forward to check on his condition. "Are you okay? Is everything all right?" Uehara Shiroa waved his hands and replied weakly, "It's nothing, I just overused too much energy from my body, and I can't hold on for a while. I'll be fine in a moment. Make sure these people have left." Raymond looked toward the direction of the cave entrance. The group of masked men had already run away and no one was left. So he said to Uehara Shiroa, "Don't worry, they're all gone, we're safe now. I don't think the Dawn organization will be able to hold out for much longer." After hearing this, Uehara Shiroa finally breathed a sigh of relief. Several people helped Uehara Shiroa up from the ground. He turned his head and glanced at Ryuta. Ryuta felt a little guilty for his cowardice just now. On his face, there was more fear than guilt. He was also afraid that Uehara Shiroa would attack him. Even Dewey was no match for Uehara Shiroa. If Uehara Shiroa wanted to kill him, it would be easy. It would only take him a thought. Chapter 386, Masked Men Flee in All Directions. After this battle, Uehara Shiroa felt exhausted. Raymond on the side glanced at Dolph, then asked him, "How should we deal with this big guy? With our current strength, we probably can't do anything about him." Uehara Shiroa turned his head and took a look, then spoke, "If this thing were to appear in the real world, the good days of these hollows in Hueco Mundo would probably be over. Let him stay here forever. Although Dewey is dead, I think the Dawn organization will soon have a new leader. But these have nothing to do with us. Our mission has been completed and we can finally leave here." Then several people helped Uehara Shiroa limping out of the cave. The situation outside really surprised everyone. All the masked men of the Dawn organization were in chaos, and some even threw away their masks. These people started to run for their lives, which made everyone feel a little strange. Raymond asked in confusion, "We don't plan to do anything to them, right? Why do they seem so panicked?" Uehara Shiroa also realized that something was wrong, so he grabbed a random masked man who was running away from him. After being caught by Uehara Shiroa, the masked man was very terrified. He immediately knelt on the ground and begged for mercy. "Don't arrest me. We're just following orders. We have no opinion on you. Please let us go." Chiokura stepped forward and spoke to the other person in a gentle tone, "Don't be afraid. We don't plan to do anything to you. We just want to ask you why the members of the Dawn organization are running for their lives. We didn't say we were going to do anything to you." The masked man replied stutteringly, "It's not you, it's Dolph. This guy is so scary." As soon as he finished speaking, the ground beneath Uehara Shiroa's feet began to shake. The violent shaking lasted for about half a minute before it stopped.
Uehara Shiroha then realized that something was wrong.
The masked man who had just been caught had already escaped in the chaos. Uehara Shiroha slowly turned his head and glanced in the direction of the underground cave.
Is this guy going to get out of control? Raymond asked in confusion. That shouldn't be the case.
He's been imprisoned in this place for a long time, and he seems to be well under control.
How could it be such a coincidence that he's out of control as soon as Dewey dies? Raymond's words did serve as a reminder to Uehara Shiroha, and he spoke immediately. You're right. I think this is the possible reason. Dewey may have his own way to control this guy.
These chains may not be shackles at all for Dolph. The only way to trap him inside might be by some other means, but Dewey is dead now, so this so-called seal might no longer exist. At this time, several masked men ran past Uehara Shiroha, still shouting, "Run for your life! Dolph will soon appear. Dewey is dead, everything is over, so run as far as you can." After hearing the shouts of these men, Uehara Shiroha was basically able to confirm his guess. Chapter 387, Territory Shakes. These abnormal behaviors of the masked people soon attracted everyone's attention. Shiokura asked Uehara Shiroha worriedly, "What should we do now?" "Let's leave this place as soon as possible. It looks like something big is going to happen." Uehara Shiroha looked back and realized that all his goals had been achieved this time. The Soul Slayer had returned to his hands. After receiving the reward for the task, the Hogyoku had also been upgraded, and its power was indeed extraordinary. Now that his companions were all safe, Uehara Shiroha had nothing to worry about anymore, so he said to everyone, "Now that the trouble has been resolved, let's leave this place as soon as possible." After saying this, Uehara Shiroha and his companions prepared to leave. After they took a few steps forward, the ground beneath their feet suddenly began to shake violently. Not far from them, a huge crack suddenly appeared. Several masked men were standing on it and fell directly into the crack. The screams of the masked men echoed all around. Seeing this scene, the remaining masked men became even more panicked and began to frantically escape. Uehara Shiroha realized that something was wrong and immediately asked his companions to speed up, and everyone ran outside as fast as they could. When Uehara Shiroha looked back again, the hole leading to the basement had completely collapsed. It seemed that it was just as he thought. After Dewey died, some kind of seal on Dolph seemed to have been released, and these ordinary chains could no longer imprison it underground. If this thing got out, it would be troublesome. After all, the Dawn organization still imprisoned many low-level and high-level hollows, which were nutrients for Dolph to evolve. He ran wildly all the way outside and finally escaped from the territory of the Dawn organization. Several people stood there, holding their knees and breathing heavily. Uehara Shiroha looked back and saw that the Dawn organization was in chaos and had lost its former glory. Then, a huge figure slowly crawled out from the crack in the ground, and the creature that appeared in front of everyone was Dolph, who had been trapped in the cave before. This guy grabbed anyone he saw. He didn't seem to be picky about food at all and could put anything in his mouth. Ryuta said to everyone worriedly, "What are you still doing here? Do you want to run back to save these people? Why don't you run for your lives?" With Ryuta's personality, he would have run away by himself when danger appeared. The reason why he didn't run away was because he was uncertain. He didn't know what unknown dangers were ahead. There was already a certain gap in strength between Ryuta and his other companions. This time everyone had completed the task of repairing the cracks, and their attributes had been improved to a certain extent. These people would become his best helpers. Even without everyone's help, Ryuta couldn't guarantee whether he could survive in this place, so he had always been dependent on everyone. Uehara Shiroha didn't dare to hesitate any longer. These people from the Dawn organization weren't good people to begin with. They had tried to kill them several times, and Uehara Shiroha would not have any mercy on them, so he led everyone to continue running forward. After running a few steps forward, Shiokura called everyone from behind, "I think we shouldn't just leave like this. This will become a nuisance to everyone." Chapter 388, Escape from the territory first and then make plans.
After hearing this, everyone stopped and Ryuta asked Shiokura with a puzzled look on his face. "You're not being too compassionate at this moment, are you? Could it be that among these masked people there are your relatives or friends?
Their lives and deaths have nothing to do with me."
Ryuta had always been selfish, but this time, Uehara Shiroa rarely agreed with what he said. "I think what Ryuta said is right. These people aren't good people either. They've done us a lot of harm. Not adding insult to injury is our last act of kindness.
There's no need to care about their life or death." Shiokura replied with a frown on her face. "This guy has evolved to a level that's hard for us to imagine. He shouldn't be here in the first place.
His appearance will definitely bring great chaos to Hueco Mundo."
When the cracks appeared between the inner and outer areas before, ordinary high-level hollows almost caused the outer areas to become a mess.
"Do you think the appearance of Dolph will make the situation worse?"
Shiokura's words caught Uehara Shiroa's attention. After some thought, he decided to leave first and discuss other matters later.
"Let's leave here for now. We're no match for him even if we put all of us together. It'll be even more dangerous if we stay here. Let's find a safe place first." After hearing what Uehara Shiroa said, Shiokura didn't say anything else. She followed everyone and ran a long way.
After escaping to a relatively safe place, Uehara Shiroa suggested taking a rest, so everyone sat down around their makeshift camp.
At this time, Uehara Shiroa also began to think about what Shiokura had said before.
At least from the current situation, the inner and outer areas of hollows were definitely no match for Dolph. If all these hollows were devoured by him, this guy would continue to complete his evolution. Besides, there were already a large number of hollows imprisoned in the dungeon of the Dawn organization.
After Dolph came out of the Dawn organization, he would definitely complete his evolution again and his strength would be stronger than before.
Seeing the troubled look on Uehara Shiroa's face, Raymond asked, "The mission has been completed now, but you still seem unhappy.
Do you have any hidden missions? We've lived and died together during this period. If it weren't for you, we wouldn't have been able to survive.
If there really is a hidden mission, please tell us and we'll do our best to help you complete it." After hearing what Raymond said, Uehara Shiroa felt warm in his heart, so he smiled and shook his head.
"There are no more missions, but I think Shiokura is right. Dolph's appearance may cause Hueco Mundo to lose its balance seriously.
This guy may become the biggest hidden danger of Hueco Mundo." Ryuta sneered with a look of disdain on his face. "I say you should put aside your heroism.
What does this have to do with us? It's good enough to be alive now. You've completed your mission, right? I came here to help voluntarily, and I can leave now. I don't want to continue to get involved with you."
Uehara Shiroa thought about it carefully and realized that Ryuta really couldn't help much now, so he spoke, "If you want to leave, go ahead.
We won't stop you this time."
Hearing that Uehara Shiroa agreed to let him leave, Ryuta was also a little surprised and a little bit disbelieving.
Chapter 389, Ryuta chooses to leave the team. This was the first time that Uehara Shiroa had agreed.
Before, Ryuta had repeatedly expressed his desire to leave.
Although Uehara Shiroa agreed on the surface, he would use various means to force him to come back behind his back. Ryuta frowned and asked Uehara Shiroa with a puzzled look on his face, "You're not going to play any tricks on me again, are you?"
After the lessons learned from the previous times, even if Uehara Shiroa agreed to let him leave, Ryuta didn't dare to leave easily.
He always felt that something seemed to be wrong. However, Uehara Shiroa replied calmly, "Your mission has been completed. We don't need you anymore. If you don't want to stay with us, you can leave. Don't you understand such a simple truth?" Ryuta hurriedly stood up from the ground and looked at his other companions. None of them had any objections.
After all, people like Ryuta might bring more threat than help to the team if they stayed. Often when it came to critical moments, he always thought about himself. People like him could easily betray their teammates, so it might be good for everyone if he left.
Seeing that no one had any objections, Ryuta smiled and turned away.
At first Ryuta was a little cautious, but after walking for a distance, he found that there was nothing wrong, so he finally breathed a sigh of relief and stretched. That's great. I'm finally out of control of these guys. They act so righteous. If they don't sacrifice their lives, I think they'd feel uncomfortable. While complaining, Ryuta turned his head and glanced at his companions in the distance. When Ryuta turned around again, there was a person standing in front of him. The man was wearing a black cloak and his hood was worn very low, so his face couldn't be seen clearly. All that could be seen was a dark void inside the hood. Ryuta's heart tightened. He had just come out alone, and he should try his best not to have a conflict with people outside, so he wanted to go around this person. Unexpectedly, after just taking a few steps forward, this person appeared in front of him again. Ryuta realized that something was wrong. It seemed that this person was coming for him. Ryuta usually got angry at his companions, but when faced with a situation like this, he tended to behave more rationally, forcing a smile on his face and asking the other party, "What do you want from me?" The other person just stood in front of Ryuta without saying a word, which even made him wonder if this person could even speak. After all, nothing could be seen under the hood. Ryuta wanted to try to get around this person again, but he suddenly reached out and grabbed his arm, dragged him over, and knocked him out. However, when Ryuta woke up again, it was already dark. He looked at the campfire in front of him and saw a man wearing a hood and a cloak sitting next to it. It seemed that he couldn't escape from this man no matter what, so Ryuta spoke, "Why did you capture me? At least tell me, and I'll do my best to help you." "If you don't say anything now, how can I help you? Shouldn't we communicate if there's anything?" At this time, the other party finally spoke. "The Soul Slayer was taken away by you, right? It's in the hands of Uehara Shiroha." Chapter 390, Ryuta is captured by a mysterious person. Hearing the question raised by the other party, Ryuta immediately frowned. Could it be that the person in front of him was Dewey who had transformed into a hollow? Thinking of what he had done before, Ryuta immediately knelt on the ground and began to beg for mercy. "I've already said it before, just run for your life. I don't have any idea about what's going on over there. This is all Uehara Shiroha's business. Besides, when you two were fighting, I didn't come forward to help at all. The Soul Slayer was in Uehara Shiroha's hands, not in mine. If you want to find someone, go find them, don't come to me." The man in the cloak slowly stood up and came to the front of Ryuta. This was the closest distance between the two. Ryuta looked under the brim of the other's hood, and there was nothing in it except a dark void. But what made Ryuta feel strange was that the black void under the hood could emit sounds. "Go to their team and bring the Soul Slayer to me." At this time, Ryuta was still confused and had no idea who the person in front of him was. But judging from the current situation, if he didn't agree to the other party's request, he was afraid he would die here immediately. Ryuta thought about it carefully. He didn't want Uehara Shiroha to get the Soul Slayer. This task was nothing to him, except that it might be a little difficult. Faced with the situation, Ryuta could only nod his head and agree, fearing that if he went against the other party's wishes, he would die at his hands. The cloaked figure spoke again, "I'll be waiting for you nearby after you get the things, and you can just come back and find me." Ryuta nodded, then turned and walked back. At this time, Uehara Shiroha and others were also discussing the next plan. They must not let Dolph become a scourge in Hueco Mundo. While everyone was discussing, a figure suddenly came from a distance. Uehara Shiroha looked carefully. Although it was already dark, with the help of the faint light from the campfire in front of him, Uehara Shiroha could clearly see that the person walking in was Ryuta. This surprised Uehara Shiroha. Based on his understanding of Ryuta, he would definitely never come back after finally escaping from everyone's control. He had wanted to leave several times before, but was rejected by Uehara Shiroha. Now that he finally had the chance to leave, Ryuta must be so happy that he wouldn't have time to come back. Ryuta approached the crowd step by step, and Uehara Shiroha walked up to him and asked, "Why are you back again? Didn't you want to leave?" Ryuta had been thinking of excuses along the way. If he made himself sound too righteous, Uehara Shiroha probably wouldn't believe him, so he spoke with a conflicted look. "I've thought about it carefully.
Hueco Mundo is so chaotic right now. If I go out alone, I might run into other troubles. It would be better for me to follow you first. After we're sure we're in a safe place, we can go our separate ways. He had to say that Ryuta's excuse this time did seem more reasonable, at least Uehara Shiroha believed it. This was Uehara Shiroha's understanding of Ryuta. He always considered himself first when doing anything, so it was normal for him to want everyone's help now. Raymond seemed to be afraid that Uehara Shiroha would chase him away, so he spoke up for Ryuta. That wraps up the series What If Transmigrated in Bleach World. Thanks so much for listening. As always, new parts drop every 4 days, so be sure to stay tuned. Quick reminder. The series What If Transmigrated in Bleach World is now on hold, since we've caught up with the author. So now, I will be using the second most popular among the fanfics on the previous poll as the replacement for the series What If Transmigrated in Bleach World. As such, please vote in the poll and let me know which story you'd like to see next. Also check out my Patreon channel for early releases of all the series, where you can find all the series released one day ahead of YouTube. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to like, subscribe, share it with your friends, and please consider supporting the original author as well. See you in the next one.